How often should I turn it on?
Irrigation oil?
Well, just run around small.
If it's PVC, it's not a big problem. If it's steel screen, then that's a tough issue. 90% of our irrigation wells are steel screens, and it's just black steel, perforated steel. And the barnacles are just growing over the top of it. So we've hit 3 of them with explosives in the past week, trying to knock enough scale off them to get them to go again. 2 of them are gonna make it through the season, 1 of them we may have to re-drill yet. But we're gonna put the pump back in it to try and limp along until we get a rig here, because I can't get a rig here till next week.
Is that stainless steel screen or
No,
not?
it's just, they're just etched, I mean, it's just black steel. So picture black steel underwater for 50 years. It looks perfect. No corrosion at all on it. Most of the time when you camera the well, you can't tell where the screen starts and the plane is stopped. So it's a challenge to the least right now.
Well, I've got 7 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get the July City Council meeting started. The Open Meetings Act poster is located in the northwest corner of the room here. Roll call.
Tony,
I am here.
Skylar,
Here.
Brad,
Yes.
Joel.
Here.
We'll start with pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item would be the consent agenda. All items will be approved with one passage, one motion. Again, approved minutes from June 10th, 2020, regular meeting, and June 29th, 2020, emergency meeting. Approval of claims, treasurer's report, and department head reports. Any item listed on the consent agenda may, by the request of any single council member, be considered as a separate item under the regular agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second.
Motion second, any other discussion? Roll call.
Skylar,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Item number 3 would be the mayor's report. And in that, the Board of Health met today. We reviewed the nuisance property list that's been developed over the last 3 years. And in reviewing that list, after the city and building inspector and the chief of police viewed several of these locations, the Board of Health has came up with 15 properties to be considered as dangerous properties. And that information will be provided to the council at our next regular meeting, so we can consider what we're going to do with that at that time. Item number 2, appointments. Ainsworth Airport Authority, Jeremiah Sullivan has resigned from the board, and so I need to name a replacement. And I'm suggesting that consideration would be Jason Good for the term until December 1st of 2022.
Make a motion to approve Jason Good's appointment to Ainsworth Airport Authority.
All second.
Motion second, any other discussion? Roll call.
Brad,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Skylar,
Aye.
Second committee would be Committee on Housing, and 2 terms have expired there in April. It'd be the reappointment of Jerry Allen and Jim Wagner, and those terms will expire on April 8th of 2023. Jerry and
Oh, okay, yep, all right, I'm good now. Sorry.
I move to approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve Jerry and Jim. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Joel,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Skylar,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Okay, the last committee for appointment would be the library board. Again, this would be a reappointment of Elaine Lentz, Todd Flynn, and Tracy Alberts. Again, this would be for a period of 4 years, and those terms will expire on April 30th of 2024.
We need to do them individually, or is that all schools?
Who was the third one?
Tracy Alberts.
Okay, thank you.
I'm making a motion to appoint Elaine Lentz, Todd Flynn, Tracy Alberts to the library board for all 3 terms ending April 30th, 2024.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Tony,
Yes.
Skylar,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Joel.
And that is all of the report I have for you today. Item 4, public hearing. So we will open the public hearing at 7:05. Hearings on application of Central Valley Ag Co-op for a Class B liquor license.
This is for, oh, for him, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Are they unable to sell any at this point, or how does that work? How do they?
They
They're
they operate
grandfathered.
under, they're allowed to operate under, license.
Does it? Okay. This is just for enterprise, not for any other
Correct.
portions of this operation.
So it's just changing from the co-op to the big one.
Do they go down there, they might need a little.
We'll leave that hearing open for the present time. Nothing under old business. We'll move right down to item 6, and that was discussion consideration for the agreement with Miller Associates for the park and pool study. Larry is here, I believe, with some information.
Yeah, I didn't bring a handout this time. I think Lisa sent this contract out to you guys possibly. This is similar to what we talked about last fall. Basically what we would do is we'd evaluate your existing swimming pool, and we would look at the structure, look at the bathhouse, look for any ADA concerns, and based on that information, we would make recommendations on improvements to the pool. For example, maybe the first 20 years, you want to make your pool last for the next 20 years. Maybe these are the improvements that you need to do to make it operate. And then we would compare those costs to actually replacing the entire facility with a new facility of similar size and usage with maybe a more modern tub. For example, everybody likes the zero entry into the swimming pools. Could eliminate the wading pool. There could be an option, you know, you're having some issues with your wading pool now. We could look to abandon the wading pool and possibly put a splash pad in the park. And then as far as the park, we had talked about, came up with some ideas. Maybe evaluate what your park facilities have to offer now, your playground equipment, you've got some tennis courts and basketball courts that look more like storage areas right now. You've got a pile of sand and a couple other things, branches down there. Maybe that's a good use for it, I don't know. Or maybe we could look at possibly expanding the camping ground area or placing other amenities in the park. And then look at your playground equipment and possibly update some of that so it's more inclusive, so it's ADA compliant, allows everybody to be able to participate. So then we would develop a report after we did our evaluation and our findings and present that to the board here. I guess in addition to all that, we were gonna help develop a survey that maybe we could do an electronic type survey and put it on the web page to find out what the community's sentiment is. Maybe they want big slides at the pool, or, you know, what they might want to see done in the park. So we would include all of that information in the report and come back to the council. So that's what we had proposed, like I say, I don't know, if I probably should have brought a copy of the contract, but I didn't. For that, we had estimated a budget of $6,000 to do the report and the study and what have you, so. And then if you wanted to, there's some additional things that we could do, but that'd be additional costs. For example, maybe you do want to do a new swimming pool and you want to do a rendering, for example. So then we could do something like that, so the public can actually see what the pool might look like once it's completed. Kind of makes it a little easier for the community to be able to get behind something like that when they actually see the product.
But the renderings and things of the new pool, if we would wanna do that, they'd be in addition to the 6,000.
Yes.
And keep in mind that this study was a CCCFF grant. So of that 6,000 cost, 3,000 of it is covered through the grant.
I like to see in the future, one of my visions for the park, since we're redoing Highway 20 this next year, and we're gonna have a sidewalk that pretty much stretches the whole length of Highway 20, even going out to the park, connecting that sidewalk with a walking path all the way around the whole perimeter of the park, you know, so you have a long perimeter that is concrete, plus then concreted out to the Cowboy Trail, so it's a solid path that, you know, about that width would be, I think that's some of my future plans that I'd like to see happen.
Okay. And I think we could include something like that to come up with a budget and give you an idea what that might be, to include something like that.
You mentioned the survey, that I know the community's done a lot of strategic planning, and I'm sure there's a committee on recreation. And I don't know if there's any way that you could collaborate with them in terms of the survey, and finding out community needs and wants. Might get more confusing anyway, but just, I think two different groups planning the same thing.
Yeah, exactly, I understand that. So, yeah, we can set up a couple meetings and you know, facilitate some meetings like that to be able to include that type of information, or provide them with the opportunity to, you know, once we've got the survey, let them have the opportunity to look at it and see if they want to add, or if they think things need to be changed in any way.
And they might have something they could just give you to help you develop the survey. I don't know where that committee is at, but
Yeah.
My only input is the park needs just a little love, you know.
It's not getting used near, for the space we have out there, it's not getting used near enough. And we have space out there should be able to make it pretty nice for everybody.
And we need to have more opportunities for those that are with the ADA stuff.
ADA, yeah, you're correct, access for ADA, basically.
Any questions for Larry?
Do you need a motion adopting this agreement, Larry?
Well, I did bring a copy of the agreement if you would like to go ahead and move forward with it.
Can I see the copy of it?
Yeah.
Before I make the motion, I would like to at least put eyes on it.
How long do you envision that it will take from the time that the contract will be signed until you're completed?
Yeah, that's always a good question too. You know, I would think that we would be able to have something by next spring to have a completed product. Because what I want to do is I want to come back out to the pool and visit with the pool managers and what have you, find out what might be going on with the pool. We did just recently finish a project project out there where we replace the filter system with a new filter system. So I am somewhat familiar with your swimming pool. But if the bathhouse side of it, I'd like to kind of look at and see what's going on there, the waiting pool simply, to see if there's, looks like structural concerns. And then we'd like to do some testing on the pipes to make sure that there's not leaking, but maybe since you filled it, have you had problems with it, you know,
Well, we caulked and painted, which that always makes a huge difference in the first year that we do that. So, to my knowledge, no, we're not having front houses or anything.
Okay,
We had trouble with the boiler, which we didn't know.
yeah.
That's fixed.
But that's, what is that, 70 years old?
Mm. Yeah, at least, probably. Pretty pricey to replace.
Well, it's really, but it's kind of important to be able to do when you got fire inside.
What we've been doing with swimming pools, we've been putting in heat pumps. Where the heat pump doesn't have that fire, so it doesn't have the issues that you have with the boiler. Takes it a little longer in the spring to kind of warm the water up, but once it gets the water up to temperature, you know, they're much more efficient. They're, I'd say 156% efficient. The boiler.
What type of heat pump are you referring to?
It's an air to water type heat pump. It brings the water in and it's got an exchange chamber there.
How does that compare cost per?
It's, you know, your boiler, you're probably looking at, I would say 12 to 18,000. And the heat pumps were gonna be probably, 20, 25,000 to install it. Plus you're probably gonna have to bring in a little more electrical service to be able to handle it. But it'll pay for itself in the long run. In fact, that'll be one of the things I'll probably look at in the study, is to kind of show you how they'll pay for themselves, if you will, in the long run. Because like I say, if you get 12 years out of the boiler, you're doing pretty good. And these heat pumps, I know there's some of them that are out there since the late 90s that are still in operation, so they've got some pretty good life out of them. I mean, really, it's not much there to go wrong with them,
Compressor on a big fan.
that pretty much.
How hard would it be to get a clause in here that when you're gonna complete it? Because there's no, it's open-ended, it doesn't say when it'll ever be done.
Okay? You wanna jot it down in there?
Pardon?
You wanna jot it down in there?
Well,
Or I can have it edited and we can send it back to you.
It would be nice if we could have the plan done by January so that we can make plans for spring. If we want to move forward with doing something. Should give you 6 months, 5 months. 5 months doable.
It'd be a challenge, but how about if we say the end of January?
I just think you need something.
I think everybody works better with a deadline, I know I do.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Miller and Associates for the park and pool study with one modification of the contract that we would like to, that we would require that all work be performed and delivered to the city by January 31st, or the 31st of 2021.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion is, or second, any other discussion? Discussion? Roll call.
Skylar?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Let's go back up to item 4. Close that public hearing at 7:20.
I'll email it to you.
Okay.
Thanks, Larry.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you for putting me up on your agenda.
You're welcome.
Wait, on the CDA. Close the hearing, so I would make a motion to approve the Central Valley Ag Co-op Class B liquor license for the facility here in Ainsworth.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Remind me, is this an approval or just recommend to the Liquor Control Commission that's approved? How does it work for these?
It's a recommendation for
It's supposed to
approval.
be done in a year.
Roll call.
Under details, right?
Brad?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Skylar?
Abstain.
Okay, move back down to the regular agenda. Item B, discuss and consider for paying application number 1 for bid section A and bid section B of the wastewater improvement project. And Jess is here to speak if we have questions and give some information.
Right, you should have the application for bid section 1, which is the meters. That was the first application for that, as well as the first application for bid section B, which would be the cure replace liner and sewer. Meter wise, they have a collector in place and pretty much right at 1/3 of the meters done right now, so. Really what I talked about, sounds like they're
Are they working?
moving through them.
Yeah. One has been a trooper. She has been the file tester with G Works and Neptune. She's had a fun few days. We're working through it and we'll have an in-person training on that billing software starting next Wednesday.
That sounds like a ton of fun coming up.
It will be, in the long run, you know, keep around the long run.
That's right. Eye on the prize, right?
We better to know how to run these stuff.
How's the sewer line portion of things going?
The cure replace liner is, I think it's all but done essentially for the liner parts, so working on a few cleanouts, and then there's quite a few holes everywhere opened up that they just need to possibly raise manholes, cleanouts, bring them up to level and finish it off. I think those guys did a pretty good job, they kind of come in and got it going pretty good.
Any problems that they weren't accounting for really? I mean, there's always a few black eyes of the project. That's not-
Yeah, there was one of the deeper areas, that we were looking at, hoping to line, they never got through it when they were planning it to start with. We tried both ways, so it was kind of an offset issue, I think. Again, we're not able to get through that part, so, I don't know if you guys remember right, earlier on when we were discussing some of the other items or possible direction to go with additional liners. It was an issue adding additional liner to the project. It was not included in the initial study that was done. This was included in the study. It's not going to be able to be lined. So right now we're working with CDBGs in the process of review to see if we can possibly include that, utilize the money that we had taken off the project to include this, which would be in bid section C. It's putting in the lift station, but they're also digging, so possibly replacing this line instead of lining it. So
Which line is
Dawson.
one block work?
It's like, I don't know, yeah, it's about 400. It's not, I don't think it's quite 2, it's like 600 feet.
It's a fairly long.
It's like a long block or almost not quite 2.
And it's,
So
the sewer lays pretty deep in that stretch,
it's pretty deep.
so we're basically talking about taking the street
expensive spot repairs was in that location. That's what was decided, that it wasn't really completed, so. Thought that'd be a pretty good route to possibly utilize some of that extra money. It is quite a red tape deal to jump through, so we're in the process, we brought it up to them, and they've been reviewing it, so.
At least we know where it is, we know what to focus on going forward. so.
Right. But they did a pretty good job on that, and like I said, they, next month you should have their final, so they should be here now. As well as August has always been the date for, bid section C Midlands to come in and start on the lift station down there, those few lots, so, that and the generators. So,
They still kind of on cue for August, or have we heard anything?
yeah, we haven't heard anything different.
Good.
Jess, what's the riser between the 56 sticking out in the middle of the?
That's probably clean out. Those are what they're gonna have to come back and cut off, bring the grade, cut off, put a lid on it, and form that concrete. Basically, at the end of the line, instead of having a manhole, you have some clean outs all over town, so it's, it'll come, your sewer line will be coming out, and then it will hit a fitting, and then it'll come up at an angle, so you can still get in there with a sewer jet, you just don't have a manhole. So it's like an access, a non-man access.
Never was one there before, apparently.
We replaced quite a few. We actually looked at replacing them with manholes, but that ended up in the, I think there was 30, 40 manholes to it, so it was very expensive, so. This just gives the guys a direction. They can come in with their jet and they can still get in there and clean from that side. So those are most of the areas that they're cleaning up and bringing up the grade. I guess, I don't know if there's any other questions, but this is the format that you'll see the pay applications come through in. Like I said, you probably only see one more on bid section D, but, this takes care of all the requirements, both on needs and everything else, so. I think we're, got an email on it, should be up to speed on that as of today, so. Just need a,
Any problems or concerns you're seeing other than the one stretch that we aren't gonna be able to do? Everything else pretty much going as planned?
with the sewers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It's a good product. It'd been nice if then we covered quite a bit more, but.
Only circle the wagons and come back to it.
Yeah.
It works. How's the water meter, with getting in and out of houses, how's that work going?
On the sewer or the water?
We've been figuring that out
I'd
themselves.
say more than that.
Right.
They're really
Yeah, we got
about
that back
probably
way.
everything they have this year.
Not really.
Well, but I mean,
A couple calls from.
Oh,
people
how many
that
things got
know
done?
it, but hard to remember.
What's that?
Which
Instead of
they-
2 wires, there's 3, it's some additional percentage. There's
But
minor issues.
should, it's hard to gauge that on the ones that are good and replace in good conditions, so it should be knock out most of the bad stuff.
The only other thing to be aware of is we really weren't anticipating such a large dry request on the first one. I don't know, I was anticipating it would go as fast as it did. So we did do another dry request on, with Piper Sandler. So we requested $1 million draw. That'll cover this bill set and then hopefully next month's bill set, which will be the remainder of the clear in place, and I'm assuming another big chunk of the line.
Very good. I'm glad to see they're making good progress.
Yeah,
It's nice to see when you get the project, that's, it's nice to just see that happen.
it is, it's good to see it get going, a lot of holdups to start with, so they all hit the ground running, they're doing a pretty good job, so that's good to see.
So back to basically bid section A, if I'm not mistaken, that's $148,131.51. And bid section B is $327,425.64.
We need to do those in two separate motions.
I think we could do them in one, couldn't we? Same company.
number 1 for bid section A, and bid section B, if I'm saying that correctly, of the wastewater improvement project.
I'll second that.
Motion is second, any other discussion? Roll call.
Joel,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Skylar,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Yes, I got one question, it just popped in my head, but it doesn't have anything to do with the payment side of it. Since we're not gonna be able to do that one main, which obviously we got approved for, but if we can't get the funding red tape issue resolved to be able to do something different with those funds, then that'll just be a credit off the back end of the project, correct?
Yep.
Does that, if that ends up happening that way, does that jam us up in any way with all of our grant funding stuff that we're doing with
It
this?
shouldn't jam us up, it's
Jim
taking,
said it's
it's
more
taking
of
it
a,
off.
It reduces it,
more of a
doesn't it?
Robin.
Yeah, you're not,
Robin's-
Yeah, it was just that much less we get to utilize.
it's a match, so you're actually, we're trying to utilize it.
Gotcha. Yeah, the more sewer we fix, the better off we are, so I'm not looking to not fix it.
We don't wanna,
It doesn't reduce our loan amount, it reduces our grant award.
Get the red tape sorted out.
we're trying. Great way of spending it.
I like better than watching speak. Ooh,
Any other questions for Jess?
that's all I got, thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you. Item C, discuss and consider resolution 20-04, League Association of Risk Management 2020-2021 coverage renewal.
So we do this every year.
That's the
Obviously.
same question as yours.
I know, and I was prepared for it. So their letter is confusing, their setup is confusing. Basically, what the letter is saying is if you wanna go out for bids, you know, and get competing bids on insurance package from other providers, then you should select the lesser commitment and take the lesser discount. It's like giving more notice that we may leave them, we're gonna go out for bid, it may be a termination. If we have no intention of going out for bid, this year or next year, then you should elect the 3-year to get the bigger discount. It doesn't, it's confusing, because you think if you take the 3-year 1 year, you should take the second, the 2-year the next year, and the 1 year, but that's only if you're gonna go out for bid within that 3-year period.
And it doesn't lock in the cost.
Correct.
We promise more discount, but we won't lock in the cost.
Correct.
This sounds like big of a vote.
So you can see on the proposal page there, the breakdown, they've got workers' compensation quoted at 22,216. General liability is at 14,575. Errors and omissions, 2,747. Law enforcement liability, 2,313. Auto, 2,431. Auto physical damage at 16 vehicles, 2,889. Commercial property, 37,423 for a total annual contribution of 84,594. And then at the bottom there, you can see the notice and commitment with the discounted rate. So to take the 3-year, 100-day notice, it's 80,365. And so it's,
So we get a $4,000 discount if we sign up blind and we don't go without it.
5%.
last year, I believe we did the 3-year 5% discount, obviously, we didn't have to do it this year.
Then why do we have to do this every year then? Last year we did it for 3 years.
My guess is it's just to put Lauren on notice whether or not we intend to go out for bid. So they know every year who intends and who's maybe not intending.
Have they been pretty good to work with as far as we have claims and stuff, or not? Are they
Yeah,
doing what they're supposed to be doing?
my experience with Lauren. Lauren also insures Cater Solid Waste, so it's city office, we work with them, pretty often. I've never had a negative experience with them. In the 5 years working both entities, I've never had a bad experience. They're very professional, they're very helpful, they're very prompt. Anytime you have a claim, it's typically within a day of sending the claim, you get a phone call or an email back. They make stops in the office fairly often. They
If-
provide trainings.
If we went out for bids, would it be like one of our local ones, or would it be other companies that we would be doing this with, go out and bid for?
Well, I know, just a little bit, I've attended some of the Lauren board meetings, I have called in and sat on some of them. As a municipality, I think the impression across the state is sometimes it's difficult to get comparable coverage because this farm is a municipal pool. So, whereas pollution insurers, are not, so, and cities typically have larger claims than most general companies, unless you're a very large company. What I hear across the state is Lauren tends to be more competitive for a municipality. I myself have never been through the bid process, with anyone other than Lauren. We've always had Lauren, so I can't say that firsthand.
Any idea of 50%, 90% of the communities using it?
I don't know what their total membership is at the moment. They had a rocky patch, maybe administratively, over the last year. There was some issues with the executive director, and the pool itself, the membership is kind of revolting against the administration, I would say. He was trying to take one in a different direction. Anyway, that has since passed, and it's back under the control of the League of Nebraska Municipalities again, so it will stay a municipal pool. They did lose some members out of that deal. I don't know off the top of my head, sorry.
Just curious.
Yeah.
I could make it easier.
Yeah. I want to say that there are around 200 members total, but they also do districts, they've got SIDs and some other things besides the traditional municipality and village.
I may be mistaken, but I think we signed up with Lauren when I was on the board before, but I am not 100% positive. We've been with them for quite a while at this stage.
Yes.
Since I've been over here.
Was Bruce Backstein on the council with you? Because Bruce was telling me, just again in regard to KBI Solid Waste, that solid waste could not get insurance through anyone other than Lauren. And according to Bruce and what he's told me, solid waste kind of worked that through the fact that the city was with Lauren. So I think it essentially is trying to make the case that if the city were to hop and leave Lauren, that could put solid waste in a lurch, potentially.
Been too long ago, I don't remember the details of it. We probably all know it's on the city council.
If I remember right, it's also reduced the insurance cost of the golf course being with Lauren, because we've, instead of the golf course having its own policy, like with Monday or whatever, they've incorporated it under the cities, and it's reduced the golf course's insurance rate quite a bit.
Have you guys ever, has the golf course, do you know of, ever had to work with Lauren on a claim of any kind?
That I can't say.
We've had experience.
Yeah.
I don't have anything negative to say.
not going to, my opinion is, we're not going to look at any other insurance companies to go on a 3-year agreement with Alarm to get the 5% discount. I make that a motion.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Tony,
Aye.
Skylar,
Aye.
Brad,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Item D, report from the North Central Development Center regarding work completed under the contract for services for economic development, LD 840.
Kim Buckley has submitted a letter to the mayor and the city council, and I'll read it out. It says, Mayor and City Council, the North Central Development Center's Board of Directors is requesting an extension for the LD 840 report. COVID-19 has created many changes for our office. With each of the new programs to assist individuals, businesses, and livestock producers, the office has adapted and responded to meet the needs of our area with one staff member. The office has assisted individuals and businesses with unemployment filings and weekly certifications, the Paycheck Protection Program, economic injury disaster loans, and more recently, the Small Business Stabilization Grants for businesses and livestock producers. The North Central Development Center has been successful in bringing hundreds of millions of dollars to Pecahawburn and Rock counties in the last 2 months. 2 programs were recently closed in the past few days, which alone have resulted in hundreds of calls each day. With these 2 programs now being closed, the office is in the process of resuming back to normalcy and will be working diligently to catch up before the next CARES Act programs for communities and entities are rolled out. As the situation continues to change, the office will continue to meet the needs of our area and its businesses and ag producers. Thank you for your consideration of our one-time request for an extension of our report. As always, if the council has any questions, please feel free to call Kristen at 7603-84 or email her at her Gmail address. The North Central Development Center appreciates the opportunity to serve the area for economic development. Sincerely, Kim Buckley, President of the city.
Anybody have any questions about what NCDC's been doing? I hope some of you guys have kind of been in the loop, but it has been hundreds upon hundreds of applications that the office has assisted businesses, livestock producers, people on unemployment. I mean, it has been since the middle of March, a 7-day-a-week, close to 24-hour operation to help people get applied for these programs. So that's been the focus of what that office has been doing, and it's resulted in, you know, millions of dollars for this area, and headaches averted for people that just didn't have the knowledge of how to fill out those applications properly, or even where to go and how to use those systems. So it's been, you know, we could trumpet in bundles of people to provide some testimonials on the help that the office has given. I know it's worked with area banks, helping them through the process. You know, and unfortunately with an office of one, there's only so many things you can get done. So as far as LB 840 applications, I know there's some. Now we've obviously had issues trying to get the applications the way they needed to be after working with the new LB 840 attorney, and then making some additional changes here recently. I think you guys have those ironed out now so that we know what to give applicants when they come in that isn't going to get changed again. So now we're set on what we have to use. So I think we should have those. Any pending applications for LB 840 should be able to move through the process here fairly quick. But I'll just be honest, with an office of one, the priority was helping these businesses and ag producers and people on unemployment getting their applications through with the deadlines that were in place for those programs. So
Part of the hardest part that we experienced at the bank was the change that came with the CARES Act. Every program that we've experienced, we thought you were headed in the right direction and it would change. Or there was issues with the program itself and people couldn't get in. So then they shut it off for a week, and so what that does is creates more issues. There's no doubt those programs have been challenging, but it's been very positive, I think, for the three county areas because it didn't have inject a lot of cash into our area. Hopefully that will pay dividends down the road for everyone.
Yeah, and along those lines, you look at it with every dollar that's brought in through those programs, the likelihood of, first of all, keeping a business that collects sales tax open that might otherwise not have been able to stay open. Secondly, putting money into the pocket, or, you know, capital into the pockets of people that are then going to use that money here locally, generating sales tax dollars, which again, portion goes into that LD 840. So, you know, long-term, getting that capital brought into this area, it may make the difference in some businesses staying open. So, you know, we know how hard it is in a small area to, first of all, get businesses to open, and then if they close, trying to get them to reopen is difficult. So, you know, I'm very confident that what the office has been doing in the last, since the middle of March, has just been phenomenal for this area. And we will be going to the Rock County commissioners and bringing people from Rock County with us that, you okay over there?
Sorry.
No, you're fine. And, you know, just trying to increase our support
If you lights up
around the
there.
area, so we'll be, you know, we've got a lot of folks, and not just, you know, as soon as the word got out that there was somebody around who could help, you know, banks, not just in Brown County, but in other counties, were sending people to the North Central Development Center, which is very good, you know, it's good for Brown County, it's good for the area, and it's been very helpful to people, so.
With some clarification on that, the banks participated in only one part of those programs.
Yeah.
And that was the Paycheck Protection Program. The rest of them have been, the idle funds are not through the banks, that's
Right.
directly with SBA. And so then you have to get another source to assist you to get that done. That was not the banks assisting with that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we were trying to answer questions and help what we could as far as doing the application portion. That wasn't really something that the banks participated in like they did the Paycheck Protection Program.
You know, I'll let, you know, Kristen, I know she's not gonna give you individual things, but, you know, as far as some people not even having computer access to be able to file for unemployment, or not having,
Yes, Brad.
not having the ability to get what they needed to get the livestock programs applied for, you know, just the work that she's done, so. What do we got going on? My thing's going off here. Was anybody?
We got a power bump. I don't know what all we got going on.
No, it's not a sustained whistle.
To piggyback a little bit on
Took a
that.
pretty good power bump apparently, because I got 3 feed yard wells that all
Thank
took
you.
off simultaneously. So,
Lightning.
yeah, sorry. All good? I'm driving mine from my phone too.
I'm fine.
Let's keep moving.
But I mean, you might have, you know, I'd let Kristen kind of fill you in a little bit on some of the things that she's been working on. But like I said, the last 3 months have been pretty much a whirlwind, so.
Yeah, I think you guys summed it up pretty well. You know, the programs have been rolled out very quickly and very rapidly. Just recently, the state received $1.25 billion, and those funds are up for grabs. And that's actually where the last few weeks of our life has actually gone to, is the business stabilization. There's also some of the Gallup Back to Business, so that just closed as well. But with that, you know, the CARES Act, there's lots more money coming down the pipe too, which is going to include money for municipalities. I know we've talked about some other types of projects that maybe could use some funding as well. You know, the hospital has some things identified, fire department has some things identified. So there's more things coming down the pike. But the original purpose of a lot of these programs and rolling those out through the federal government was to get that money on the street as quickly and as fast as we possibly could before we tanked everything. And so that's been part of the heartache and the issues, I guess, with rolling those programs out. Just for example, the PPP, you know, they told SBA, you have 6 days to pull this off, here you go, get it done. Well, those changes, the banks didn't necessarily know about the programs, you know, accountants are calling. The other thing that I guess we didn't even have in the letter and didn't have was there's actually some other Federal Reserve Bank money that we're using on several other projects that are looking at expanding. So not all businesses are struggling. I mean, there's still some good things coming out here, but those funds, if we are able to retain as much as we can locally, that money does circulate. So that's really been the focus. I can tell you, you do have 3 applications, and I was able to reach 2 of the 3 today, and they will be submitted to Lisa tomorrow. So you will have those 3 ready to process. Like I said, I did talk to 2 of the 3, and they were fine. They understood. They know we've been helping. Then you also have 4 others that I know we've sent information out. I don't have them back. They're not completed. They haven't paid an application fee or anything along those lines. So if or when those come back in, those will be rolling in soon down the road. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question back to the CARES Act. I was watching TV last night. The Omaha mayor was on TV and said the city got $400 million grant for whatever purpose. And so I thought, okay, where does Anchor fall in line with this to get X number of dollars? What was that?
That was a metropolitan class cities only. There was a certain segment that was in the CARES Act that was strictly for cities of the metropolitan class. In Nebraska, Omaha was the only one that got it.
Well,
On that certain one, that's the 400 million you're talking about.
Yes.
That was the only one in Nebraska that got that.
And
Is there anything out there that you're aware of, Kristen or Lisa, that's available to the cities to
there's money.
assist in any way?
Yeah, there are some programs that are coming down the pike. They don't actually have all of the guidelines identified or completed. I know we have an update scheduled on Friday with some of the economic developers to discuss. Part of the problem is the money that they wanted to spend the first, the Nebraska, and you see that in other states. Wyoming's doing the same thing. South of us, they're doing the same. That business stabilization grant and the livestock stabilization money, they're getting that out there so that those guys can keep operating, so we're not shutting them down. They can keep paying operating expenses, paying bills, because if the ag sector hurts, we all hurt down the road. I mean, one way or the other, that does also affect our main street. So those were the state's focus is, to get that money out for the business stabilization, and then they're gonna come in. So to answer your question, yes, there's money coming, but those guidelines and applications aren't all out there. There is some money for reimbursements. Health and Human Services has those funds. So for example, if you have to sanitize more frequently, we're seeing some of the communities that have asked about if they have to sanitize their pool or if they have to sanitize their playground, they're eligible for reimbursement on some of those things. But the actual, more of the infrastructure, public works, PPE, equipment and things like that, there's more coming down the pike.
We're discussing,
Greg, go for it.
we're discussing the contract with the next meeting, right? Lisa? The NCDC contract, isn't that on the agenda for the next meeting?
It probably will be, I think we signed in August, so it needs to be.
Greg mentioned what caught your eye or ear was the 400 million or whatever in Omaha. And I think that's a question, because I've heard this story from a lot of people, how much help they've been getting. And I realize there's a lot of privacy involved with this. Will there ever be a way to quantify what it's meant to this area or this?
Yeah.
Or would that be possible down the line, or is that gonna be?
Go ahead.
I can give you some, Joel. I know they've got information out. Now, I haven't reviewed it for county specific, but they have put out something on the Paycheck Protection Program that is county, I believe county specific. And if you're over a certain dollar amount, it does list the businesses. If the PPP money they got was, each business was below $150,000, they're not named the business. But the total for each county, interviewed one of the, John Schmatter from Tri-County Bank, and this was before the PPP program had wrapped up. And he said between that and EIDL, the other program that Greg was mentioning, between those two programs, they've had over $20 million at that point had been already deposited into, that was just into one bank there at, for the TCB, so.
You understand what I'm saying? You can
Yep.
say, well, we've helped
Yeah,
some people.
trying to quantify it, yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, you consider every application filled out for the state programs, whether it's an ag producer or a business, is gonna be flat $12,000. So that one's easy if you assisted with 250 applications, you can take that times $12,000. Now, would some of those applications been submitted without help? Yeah, I'm sure a lot of them, but making that process much easier for those people, especially those that just were out of their depth on applying for any of that type of thing. You know, we all take technology for granted. Some people still don't have those capabilities.
Yeah.
So you would have something that said, well, I held 72.
Yeah, I think we can narrow it down to the number of people we've helped. The other problem with, like you mentioned, the technology gap, you know, there are different phases of technical assistance that have been provided to all of these businesses. I have some ag guys that don't have a computer and they don't have an email address. They don't even qualify if they don't have an email address. So that means Kristen is setting up an email account for these guys and checking their email for them so they get qualified. So that, I mean, there's that side of the spectrum, and then there's the others that may call me 3 or 4 times while they have their application open, because if it shuts down, they get logged out. Or they're texting me while I'm uploading somebody else's application saying, hey Kristen, I can't get the page to move forward. And I say, try this, you know, delete the zeros out, retype the 0, hit mark as completed, then try to submit it, move on. So, I mean, at any given time, we could be doing 2 or 3. The other thing, like with the EIDL programs, I don't necessarily go back and check and say, how much money did you get? You know, my goal is to help them get it submitted. If they get the advance money, no, some of those guys check back in. You know, there was 1 week, it was right when the ag program, originally ag didn't even qualify for the EIDL program. So the rules changed in the middle. And then they said, hey Kristen, guess what? It was about noon that day. We got the message and they said, we're opening it up, ag qualifies today. So, I mean, we're calling every ag guy we can find in the area and saying, and shooting emails and putting it on our Facebook, and Greg's been great about letting us go on the air and do updates. So at that point, it becomes, okay, you change your game and get as many of these in as you possibly can. So from there, those idols, you know, if some of them texted me back. Some applications, I've got one, and this is a commercial business, they've actually been in the system for over six weeks and still don't have an answer. You know, so right now I'm working with that business owner and the manager, and also working with SBA trying to figure out where are they in this queue, because they've been sent to a loan officer in Texas. We don't know what's happened to their app, but we have the confirmation number, we don't know. Then I have other businesses that were getting a turnaround in 24 hours and texting me and saying, Kristen, I just had $117,000 hit the bank this morning. You know, and I'd helped them submit that app the night before at 10:30 at night. So, I mean, it is all over the board, it's wild. You know, when I have 200 phone calls before 10 o'clock, I can only answer so many calls. My kids help me answer phone calls. My kid can tell you the difference between the PPP and the EIDL program. She can also take one phone from me, and she can tell you how to upload your Schedule F and send it to my mom. Because, and the first question she will say is, do you have an iPhone or do you have a Droid? Because she knows how to work both, and she can tell you. And so, I mean, it's amazing because, again, some of these guys, they don't even know or have a scanner or a computer. They can't get me their Schedule F. So, I mean, we have texted, we have Facebook messaged, we have, I mean, it's all over. I mean, it's gonna be a little bit difficult to track when you're.
And some of the others that can be quite dire are the people that initially, and I want to think back to April, that lost work either temporarily or, you know, permanently as businesses cut back. But the unemployment, of course, that you've seen in the news, just got inundated initially, and the people that she helped with unemployment applications that then picked up, you know, I mean, that's the difference for making rent or making a light bill or getting groceries, you know, I mean, some of those things, those were some of the most impactful to individuals were the help getting people through the unemployment application process. It's not an easy application process, and as slow, you know, as many people as were trying to utilize that website, it was very frustrating, but, you know, working people through that. So, I mean, you want to talk about, you know, the state said it's, you know, 2.5 years worth of unemployment claims that they handled in 6 weeks or whatever. Well, you think of the calls that we've been, you know, you can imagine that on this scale, how much here that, and unfortunately with the way things worked out in the last couple of years, we are at an office of one person. That's became our reality. And, you know, to her credit, she's been phenomenal in the amount of output that one person has been able to kick out to this area.
Sounds like there's 2.
No, all I do is do an interview every once in a while to,
No, her daughter.
oh yeah, right.
She can't explain it to me.
Right.
But to answer your question a little bit, to quantify, I'm hoping that on like the state programs, the business stabilization, I'm really hoping that they announce those by county. The state, we actually talked to DED earlier in the week, they were going through the applications. You know, the goal originally was to have some of that money out and in the hands of livestock producers or businesses by mid-July. Now, the livestock stabilization, there were issues, we ran into problems on Monday, and Tuesday morning, we had a group of economic developers that had actually met with SBA. That was at, I think it was 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, we got the email saying we're pulling the site because there was a glitch. So Department of Revenue was actually rejecting a lot of our ag guys, because if their accountants had checked a box on their, it was their 1040N, is what it would have been. They hadn't checked the box that said they were farmer or rancher, Department of Revenue was automatically rejecting them. They didn't qualify. So when we said, hey, this isn't working, we're getting a lot of rejections, and we know these guys are two-thirds of their income's coming from ag, and we know they have more than 20 head, they should qualify what's going on. So at that point they pulled that site Tuesday at noon and shut it down. They gave us time then, by Friday, we had Friday at 5 o'clock. Anybody that had been sent in, had been rejected, we received an email back and said, now you have until Friday at 5 to get them submitted. So we've got the issue fixed, get it rolling. And then they reopened that cycle Monday morning at 8 o'clock, and now it's just finalized. So, you know, that being shut down and reopening, I still think they're gonna get it out really very, very quickly. I mean, that is the goal, is get that money in the hands of the people that need it, keep things circulating and help them out. Like Greg mentioned, you know, there are definitely some businesses around here that are hurting, that are struggling. There are other businesses that are calling us saying, Chris, we need to expand, you know, and there are some other programs. There's the Federal Reserve Bank has some programs that we've looked at. You know, interest rates are cheaper right now, so there's some ways that we can maybe help those guys, you know, expand while the market conditions are right for them. But that's not the case for everybody. There are some that are really hurting right now.
And with all that said, now as some of those programs end, it's hopefully being able to get back, let's get some of these other smaller things processed that were maybe waiting an application change or what the final application was gonna look like. Now if we've got some of those, let's get those taken care of. We'll try to get those out, get loan committee through them, and get some of those from LB 840 in front of the council. I don't know how quick the loan committee can meet, but hopefully by your August meeting, maybe you'll see a couple of those applications come to your guys' agenda, so.
So back to item D, you guys are asking for an extension per that letter of Kim's. I think that's what council needs to act
And I suppose that extension would just being for like our annual report on the LB 840 side of things.
30-day extension until the next council meeting, is that correct?
Perfect.
Yeah, that'd be fine with us. It's good with you, hopefully. Unless we have round 2 of all these things that come out because we close everything down again.
I will say that.
Yeah.
And some of them have been extended, PPP's been extended.
Well, I make a
That's good.
motion to approve the extension for 30 days to the next council.
I'll second it.
Motion second, other discussion? Roll call.
Skylar?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Item E, consider the request to vacate Park Street, the section between East Third Street and East Plainsman's Drive.
So this street is actually platted, but it's never been actually moved into an active street. So on the plat, it is actually called Park Street, and it's platted as a 30-foot wide street. In the Shannon and Williams block.
Sorry.
You have it in your packet, so you know what I'm talking
It's a
about.
great big red block, it's landing on top of our head right now, so it's all good. Hopefully my pickup survives, everything else is inside, so.
You paid your premium.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if you have any questions, but the process in the ordinance book is pretty clear about how you go about vacating, how it would have to be done by ordinance. So this is really just seeking directive from the city council whether or not you want to pursue this. There's notice that has to be given to the property owner. Rob would have to draft, basically an agreement, right, Rob, that they, half of each side would do. I think we would want to recommend an easement.
Now, they came, somebody came to us and wanted us to do that. We didn't do that on our own, right?
Correct, Tracy Tucker.
Or they want to expand onto it, or they want to build on it, or they want to,
This is the little bitty chunk of street just west of the softball field, right?
no, this goes by Brandon Evans, and where,
West of Brandon
Rick
Towns.
Runyon used to live.
There's a street through there?
Yeah,
It is actually, it's just not developed.
that's not developed.
There isn't, but there is.
Yeah.
On paper there is, but in reality,
Yeah.
there's never been a
Correct.
street.
Correct. Yeah. It's just a grass space, basically.
Like, I'm not one to ever give up land, because once you give it up, you never have it again. But in this case here, I don't know where we'd ever use that property.
Yeah, it really would just connect East Third Street and East Twenty-Third Drive. It'd be a connector street, is all it would be.
What about fire,
What's that?
access for fire?
I don't think there's any hydrants on, there's room, that's why I was wondering if they're gonna build there. You know, if they're
He
building,
didn't indicate that.
because there's an open lot that Evans owns to the west of this, yeah, he owns that lot, and you know, in the future, will not ever be,
Well, there's an empty lot west of that also, correct?
no, because the rest
That's
is,
behind the wall.
But isn't that hers? Down to the street. So there's two
you got
empty lots.
Tucker's, and then you got this, and then you have Apple. And then behind Apple, that's an empty lot that, Evans is building. And then you got a property of Maxwell to the west of that.
So really, it's just getting the council to move forward with working on that location.
There's no between the street was never existed.
Yeah.
Well, because it's flat,
I understand, but it's not something that
we're not using.
we've managed to survive as a city for the last 100 years without it, just whether we can get through with the next 100 or 100. It's only one block, right? Essentially.
Two properties, pretty much. I guess I would make a motion to, recommend the vacating of Park Street going south to Mercer. On lot, what, 1, lot 4, is that correct?
Yeah, that's essentially the Tucker's lot right there. That lot on lot four.
Just two property owners then with half and half, so 15 feet each it would add
That
to
would
their
be
lots?
Three property owners.
Four property.
Four properties, three,
Okay, four properties that would basically have,
Will that have to be surveyed and Rod, and that'll be at those owners' expense, I assume?
That's up to them, pretty much. It's not
Survey?
our responsibility.
Okay.
I think any cost would be associated with that to the request for credit.
It just goes to the middle anyway.
It's up to them. Just to make sure that we work.
I can go $85,000. Survey fees, huh?
You got a second on that?
I didn't,
Second.
okay, thank you.
I hope Brad's motion is hanging back.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Brad,
Yes.
Joel,
Yes.
Tony,
I'm a yes.
Skylar.
Item F, consider recommendation by the Angels Betterment Community to authorize $30,000 from ABC fund to the pool fund. I don't see representatives here for that.
And there was no formal request put in, that's just something the ABC has done annually. They had a meeting in, May for a fireworks request that ended up, the golf course came to the meeting and kind of pulled their request. But the ABC met anyway, and in that meeting, they made a motion amongst themselves to do this 30,000 transfer because they did not get it done this fiscal year. So that's what that one is. They do it, like I said, every year. I think they started that in 2012, if I remember correctly. And at that time, it was a larger, I think, $200,000 deposit. And then each subsequent year, it's been 30. And what we do with that money is we transfer it into a certificate of deposit, essentially, and let it accrue interest.
And then we have over 370.
Close to 400.
What is it?
It's close to 400.
So essentially, this is going into a sinking fund.
Basically a sinking fund. Yeah, in the city.
For the down payment on this.
If we could get a grant, it'd be a good match.
Yeah.
Which with this feasibility study, that's kind of an understatement.
You can't do the grant without having to build this study.
So looking for motion,
I move to move $30,000 from PC funds to the pool fund.
any other discussion? Roll call.
Joel?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Skylar? Brad?
Yes.
All right. Under item F, 2, $1,574.57 to Ingles Lumen Club for electrical panel upgrades for the Christmas lights in the courthouse park, and I believe you're going to speak on that, Kim?
I'm here as a representative, as a past president of the English Women's Club. And what this is, before the Christmas decorations came down here after the first of the year, Angel Electric, Dustin Barthel, and Brad Miller and I met in the park, and I asked them, because I've been a part of this Christmas decoration thing for over 40 years, what do we need to make sure that everything is upgraded so it's safe, electrical wise? And so we went through the park, and Brad Miller pointed out some things that need to be done. Angel Electric has done what I call 2 phases of this, and you've helped us before with this. And so this is the 3rd and final phase. So if I explain, the big gray board there on the southwest corner of the log cabin, that was installed in 1989 by Phil Keller. And Dustin and I had looked in there, and he said definitely inside, I'm going to just call it the guts inside, there's things that need to be upgraded and replaced for the safety, for the community. And also then we had a fire there, it was a year ago with those lollipops, that's why they had to be replaced. So we're trying to prevent all that. The Women's Club is a small group, it's like any other organization in this community. We're very lucky for people to volunteer individually in organizations, and one of their things here is to continue the Christmas City to Sand Hills, and so that's why we're coming before the city council tonight to see if you can help us out. The women are putting up $1,100. The total of the bill was $2674.57. This is just proposed, it hasn't been done yet, but this will be the final completion stage of it. Another issue that we had was on the courthouse wall where the wreath hung. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, on the southeast side. The cord ran down from the courthouse over to an electrical box, and it got cut more than once, and so the light wasn't even on. And so I talked to the county commissioners. They have now installed a new electrical outlet on that wall, and they paid for that to help us out. So that has been taken care of. So hopefully the lights won't shut off during the Christmas season if we can complete this project. So that's what I'm coming before the council to ask. So thank you.
Thank you.
Or do you have any questions? I guess
And this was recommended by the ABC.
Correct.
They met last night.
I make a motion to approve the ABC's recommendation for $1,574.57 to the Ainsworth Women's Club for electrical panel upgrade to the Christmas lights in the courthouse park.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Tony?
Yes.
Skylar?
Aye.
Brad?
Yes.
Joel?
Yes.
Thank you.
Before we get to the
Item G, city administrator clerk slash treasurer.
I was just kind of.
Thanks, Amy.
Well, thank you.
Thank
The
you.
one thing I didn't say is it will be done before the Christmas season, the lights go on. He will do it when he's a little less busy
before
come
the
this
dirt
fall.
gets, before the dirt gets hard, that's good.
Yes, thank you, I forgot to say that, I meant to. Thank you for your time.
Back to that question, I believe in that pool sinking fund, I don't know who that question to tell. It's 427,824 prior to this deposit. So 427,824 is what's in the
We'll
present.
go 450 after this.
457,824 after.
Pretty good little chunk. And I think, NCDC also has like 40,000.
Yeah, I think there's something, I don't know the exact amount, but yeah, they had done some pool fundraisers initially, so there's one account that is strictly labeled as pool, so whenever you, whenever you guys are moving forward with that, I think those funds will certainly be available to assist. It's been several years since NCDC did any fundraisers. That was Deb's project when she was there, and she, over the years, I don't know the exact dollar figure, but yeah.
Anyway, back to your report, sorry. Lisa.
Oh, that's okay. Just kind of projects and more projects still. We did LMI survey, we had that on the radio and in the paper and on the Facebook page. The first round went out, we selected randomly, I shouldn't say we, Miller and Associates. 124 households would have received that survey. As of today, we've received 65 back. So that's more than 50%. Next week, Miller and Associates will send out the second go for those who have not responded. And, depending on what the return result rate is on that, then the city will have to decide if we're gonna try to go door to door and hunt those down, or how we're going to get those returned.
Do they send them to the same people, or do they go to different people?
I believe it's the same people.
Okay, when they're getting close to sending out a second round, let me know and we can get something on the air so people don't know to look for them or know to, if they see them, it's not a scam or something,
Right.
so.
What's the percent we need to have back to,
I think she said 103, is that right?
103, and I think it ends up being 82%, I think was what Bruce and I calculated roughly earlier.
And basically what happens is, for any non-return out of that, they count it as above the LMI limit. So we really want all of those returned,
83%.
as many as we can.
Yeah, or more.
The pool is open now, to the public with our COVID-19 DHM protocols that we're still following. As far as I know, everything's going pretty well. Of course, Jess was here and he's kind of already updated on the big wastewater project. Tri-State paving, of course, has been here and completed. That, I guess basically they did kind of a rebuild of the street on 3rd and Oak on that half block section, up on 7th and Maple, by the islands up in that area. And then, of course, on the one block between 1st and 2nd on Harrington. We also, while they were here, we had them do a fair amount of armor coating, as top coat likely, isn't gonna be able to get here this year. So we kind of took advantage of Jack while he was here. And he did over 30 blocks of armor coating. He probably could have done more, but he was faster than we were. And we didn't quite have everything patched in the north part of town to have him armor coat. He did say he might be available to come back this fall. So I asked him to check in with me at that time, and we'll see if we've got some more that we might want him to do at that time.
what's our, process to actually that Harrington Street to make it smoother, because it's still pretty rough. I know we improved it some.
Process is called concrete.
I was gonna say a paving doesn't come, it'll tear up and it is all you can do.
The other
That way
option,
we fix what's there to kind of help it a little bit.
the other option that I discussed with one of the gentlemen from the State Department was when they come in to do Highway 20 here, when they're here, potentially we would have them go in and drain that back down and smooth it up. That may be an option to level it off.
The good news is at this point, we've got something on top that isn't gonna let the water through. So the sub base has got a chance to dry out. Biggest problem that they were having is the sub bases is what they were packing on footing. I'm not sure how much of that's static water level infiltration and how much of that's moisture from above. But that's always been a buffalo wallow log down in there. And hopefully, with drier conditions and now having the pavement sealed off, that subbase will have a chance to
Well, one of the worst
work out of it.
places is now is where it's more towards the north end, where they connected the new asphalt to the old asphalt, and there's a hump there.
Where they dumped it and mixed it and put it on.
There's a hump there, and that's, you come by there, especially, you know, I'm talking more on the ambulance and stuff like that. You know, if you forget about that, these,
Just
just
an
notice,
obstacle for the people on the east side of that as they go to work, they have issues.
I was gonna say dry, and have you looked out the window here?
They're just gonna paint it yellow and call it a speed bump.
That's right. Does keep the kids from racing down
it
that.
does.
Oh,
It's slowed it down.
No, it doesn't.
Well, one thing about the gravel has not keep kids slowing down, it gave them a
Reason
reason
something to do
to
burn
stay
out.
out.
Yeah.
You know, I will tell you that I think that the only way to solve that street for 2 blocks out of the 4 is you're gonna have to take whatever's there completely out and re-prep the subgrade. The only way we're gonna be able to afford to do that is with a paving plan.
Yeah.
So if you're not happy with how that street is, get on board with getting lined up on doing paving districts, because that's the only way we're gonna fix that 2 blocks.
I agree, I think we
Yeah.
can definitely look at
'Cause-
paving districts.
And
even though we can
as
fix
much
that.
traffic is on that street, it needs to be concrete, long term, that's the solution. You know, that's, that we have other streets also that fall into that realm, that they just need to be concrete, but that one
Front
is
of your
certainly
house.
on that list.
Right in there.
The First Street would be swell, if you want my vote, it's yes, you need to put that in the minutes, it's fine.
Do First and Pine so you can get 2 assessments there?
I don't really care at this point. Pine Street is not nearly as bad as First Street. First Street is just falling out from underneath.
Pine at the 3rd Street intersection's pretty rough. Or second, maybe it's second Street.
Nonetheless, I mean, we're gonna,
Better than it was.
But that is something we have started the process, we're not moving as fast as we'd like, but we are starting the process that way.
but I mean, it's just, we're gonna have to get serious about, you know, when was the last time we did what, paving district 5 years ago?
No, it's more than that.
Longer now.
I've been here
8?
8 or 9 probably.
I was on the council, it's been 8.
Over by the Methodist.
And half of it got opted out
Yeah.
of what the original plan was. Were
I
you
had
on
a
the
couple
council?
people call me about that Harrington Center.
Yeah, I've had-
Are we gonna do anything else about that?
I've
And I
had
said,
phone
well,
calls about it as well, and I told them all the same thing, that's as good as it's gonna get until we get concrete, enjoy it. I mean, I don't have,
You might have been on the board, if you remember, from Jerry Ehlers to Harrington Street, they tried 3 or 4 different types of asphalt and doing different things.
they couldn't hold
And,
it.
and it would just be a roller coaster in there. They
Couldn't
finally,
hold it.
no, they couldn't hold it with asphalt, they finally had to tear it out and put in cement.
and they had to dig nothing deep.
Yes. Well, yeah, like Tony said, it used to be a pig wall or,
It was the
You know,
old buffalo wall before,
Yeah.
when everybody showed up to town and said we planted the flag here, that was the spot where all the water ran. You know, it was a marsh for 1,000 years before anybody thought even thought it'd be here,
It was in floodplain. Originally, I remember that was on the floodplain.
before they got the storm sewers put into it to drain the water off of it.
It still is with Florida rains.
and I still wish someone explained how you can get water to run uphill. You look at that Harrington Street, and from the Star Journal down past the church, it's going downhill, and then there's the rain gutters, whatever, and the water runs from the south, from the hospital up towards that. I don't know how they get it run uphill, but they should take that sucker up to the Black Hills and put it in Cosmos.
It runs down fast, went down Second, and it hits Harrington, it's gotta go somewhere. With that speed bump, now it's probably gonna run south. Anyway,
Yeah, anyway, we're roughly 40% of the way through the damage inventory. So we're, you know, given that we didn't really start until June because of weather and whatnot, we made quite a bit of progress in the last month and a half. So, still working, mostly on alleys and then on the north side. Solar project, really not a lot of update there other than county attorney Rod, you guys have had some conversations. Lloyd is working on the plat and the survey, he's having some
side of the property, correct?
So anyway, he's working through that. In the meantime, you know, we had talked about having Adam Hessing, which was, he's an attorney out of Scottsbluff that worked with, he did the Scottsbluff solar array. So his name had come up when we were discussing the project with NPPD. So he is familiar, he has begun doing some work developing an agreement for the developer. He's waiting on those legals and the plat, but he's working and working to negotiate that with the developer. So there is some, I guess, some movement forward, despite the fact that we're having some slow movement on the plat project.
Between the property lines, those are the problem. It's important to get that figured out before you move forward instead of trying to sort it out.
Well, he's putting a placeholder in there at the moment, and I think some of the other details he thought could be worked out without having a legal.
2 weeks,
2 weeks,
that's what I was
2
given.
weeks, a week ago.
Well, then, by next Friday, everything will be pretty smooth.
3 weeks.
2 weeks from today, it's supposed to be.
So, yeah, anyway, just a lot of moving forward on a lot of different things. You have any questions about anything?
At least I do back to the tri-state, at the end of that paragraph, you have roughly 40% of repairs are done in a FEMA affected area. With the amount of time we have left, are we able to continue to buy enough product for the guys to continue to fill these potholes like they've been doing?
Right.
And will we have enough summer left prior to losing part of our
Yeah.
crew?
It's not looking super positive, you know, I'll be honest, because of that man-hours product and the fact that, you know, to armor coat, we've got to have a patching done. So that means we have to have all patching done by the fall if we have an open field, tri-state to come back and finish up. That's if they can come back. So it's more likely, unless all the stars align for us, it's more likely that we'll be armor coating in the spring. So I did, on the quarterly report to FEMA that I just completed here this week, I did request an extension just to be safe. If we get done by September, that's still the target, that's excellent. And if we don't, hopefully at least we will have that paperwork moving and hopefully an extension from FEMA so that we can have the spring completed.
Have we authorized extra hours or anything like that to help that process, or is there any willingness to do that, or talk of doing that to help?
We haven't discussed it yet, and mostly that's just because, like I said, in about a month, we did 40%. So if we can keep on track, given we've got the rest of July, August, and most of September, I'm hoping that we can just get at least the patching and our end of it done. And if we can get it done, and Jack can come back, all the better. So, like I said, if the stars all align,
Yeah, but instead of asking for the stars to align, what if we said, we want to authorize an extra 6 hours a week, put towards it for the next 90 days? You know, I mean, that buys you
Or additional summer help potentially too.
whatever it means, you know, if we, you know, if you, you know, the reality is you need skilled guys doing what they're doing.
this is
You don't
for
need,
this
you don't,
time.
you know, you don't need necessarily a bunch of high school kids to know what they're doing, you just need the guys that are there to be able to get more done.
Bart, Kevin, or not Bart, excuse me, Mont, Kevin, and Peyton Allen. That's really all you need. To get more than that, we just kind of stand around. I mean, you really just need the three people. It's just time, having time, you know, and we've had it where the guys have been pulled on some different things, you know, having to do some different things, and of course that takes the time away. So, as long as they can hammer down, but, you know, that might be something we have to talk about.
You know, my only thought is typically with, the drier things are, the better they are for doing patching. Obviously, it's raining right now,
And
but,
hot.
but hot and horrible is the best time to fix streets typically, so, you know, and I would certainly make the recommendation that at least we entertain that, see if the guys are willing to have extra hours and work the overtime. If they are, I think we're foolish not to capitalize on the overtime and take advantage of the days that are ahead of us to try and capitalize on as much of the scheme as we can. I mean, asking them to go from, I assume they're 40-hour weeks at this point, asking them to do from 40 to, you know, they have 1 hour a day or an hour and a half a day of what they're doing. Next thing, that gains you a whole other day every week,
Okay.
you know. All of a sudden in a month, you gained a week, all of a sudden in 2 months, you gained 2 weeks,
I'll visit with them.
you know.
Are your labor costs reimbursable to FEMA for the patching work you do?
They are.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I'll visit with them.
they gotta be the ones willing to do it. I mean, I'm not asking them to do something they don't wanna do, but if they're, you know,
More money in their pocket.
overtime's overtime, you know, so I think in our situation, time is of the essence, and if we're willing to, you know, allow them to have the overtime, I think we should capitalize on all the conditions that allow it, so.
The best case scenario is that we can just get it done.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, because trying to do street repairs in the spring is nearly impossible until you get to June anyway.
They have about 80, I think the oil, they need 82, I think, before they can really lay that.
So, I mean, we just, now that Labor Day, it'd be nice to just see how much we can get done. So that's my 2 cents on it, so.
Okay.
That's coming from somebody that's got 47 hours in since Sunday afternoon, so. I mean, I'm kind of at the far end of that spectrum right now, and we've kind of lost count of hours in our camp right now, so.
All right, good idea.
Hot and miserable is the best time to do the street work unless you're the guy doing it.
Best time to work on pivots too, unless you're the guy working on them, but that's the way it goes. Take advantage of it, make hay while the sun shines, so.
Yeah, that's true.
They'll be standing around in December wondering what they're gonna go do next, you know, so. Get after it while you can. Go patch the streets in the summer. What else we got?
That is all we have on the agenda.
Make a motion to adjourn then. Who else got something else they want?
Anybody else have anything that we need to do prior to adjournment?
Anything to do about that contract?
Yeah, we probably should go into executive session, this is about contract.
Alright.
Traffic regulations.
Or do you have to rescind your motion?
I can rescind my motion, that's fine.
I move to, go into executive, session to discuss contract.
Yeah. We will go into executive session, I guess roll call, sorry.
Skylar?
Very nice, folks.
Brad?
Thanks, guys.
Yes.
You'll send that packet tomorrow?
Executive session.
Sorry, Rod, I blocked you in.
Yes,
not a problem.
You'll email, let me, if you'll email that to me.
What's that? 8:31.